Released in 2001 for the Game Boy Color, WWF Betrayal, the final World Wrestling Federation-based video game to grace the Game Boy pre-advanced handhelds, was THQ's attempt at doing something different with the WWF brand. Rather than the game being a straight-up wrestling title, as past WWF games had been, Betrayal would be more of a side-scrolling beat-em-up similar to perennial beat-em-ups such as Double Dragon or Mighty Final Fight. In a way, it's sort of like the WWF branching out to other outlets with brands like the defunct World Bodybuilding Federation, or Vince McMahon's most memorable failure, the XFL. To be honest though, a WWF-themed side-scrolling beat-em-up isn't such a bad idea. In theory, you could take the basic grapple mechanics of a wrestling game, sit outside a ring with certain tweaks, and it could theoretically work if done right. So while WWF Betrayal has a sound concept, the execution of that concept is less than desirable. The story of Betrayal goes a little something like this. Stephanie McMahon has been kidnapped by God knows who, and Vinnie Mac will give you a world title shot if you save her. Yeah, if this story seems familiar to most fans of back in the day, it's because it's from a 1999 storyline where The Undertaker kidnapped Stephanie in order to perform a black wedding of sorts, only to be interrupted by Steve Austin. Strange that they're sort of recycling a storyline from '99 for a game concocted in 2001, when Stephanie was far from a likable character and probably wouldn't be worth saving even for a guaranteed title shot. In any case, it's not entirely the same thing, as the kidnapping will turn out to be a ruse and you'll end up fighting Triple H on the rooftop for the title. Yeah, sorry if I spoiled the ending for you. So you have 4 different superstars to choose from. You've got The Rock, you've got Stone Cold, you've got Triple H, and you've got The Undertaker during his American Badass phase when he rode a motorcycle to the ring. Each character has a number of special moves that execute when your power meter is full. Undertaker has a choke slam, Stone Cold's got the stunner, etc. But aside from that, there's virtually no difference between the 4 characters. You could punch, kick, do a running dropkick attack that nails enemies every single time, and that's about it. You can pick up a lead pipe here and there, or a big wrench, or use it as a weapon, destroy property for health power-ups, but that's about it. It'd be nice to be able to do more like, say, a body slam or the like, but whatever cool moves you could do can only be done with a full power meter, and this meter empties whenever you take a hit. Betrayal spans 6 levels of play, and the majority of the time will be spent fighting referees, rent-a-cops, plumbers, and other assorted folks, and that's pretty much it. There's only 3 bosses in the entire game, and they're the superstars you didn't choose at the start of the game. They're the only ones who pose any real threat in the game due to their cheap nature, but that's about it. You'll fight in locker rooms, streets, and Titan Towers, but other than the visuals and maybe a couple obstacles here and there, it's the same old stuff over and over again. Sometimes your attacks will land, other times they won't. Best to use your dashing dropkick maneuver to get the upper hand, at least until boredom sets in as a result of the tedious busy work you'll have to put up with. Now, let me make something clear. By nature, games in the beat-em-up genre are highly repetitive affairs, that much is obvious. But the really good ones, or at least the really memorable ones, usually have some element that makes them a joy to play, whether it be interesting gameplay, unique characters, or just an overall good multiplayer experience. Something that I felt was always a strong point with Konami's beat-em-up offerings such as TMNT and The Simpsons. WWF Betrayal features none of these elements. Just really uninspired combat with wrestlers who hardly use wrestling holds until they have a full power meter. I mean, this is something I don't get. Why not incorporate the wrestling aspect into the fighting, you know? Grapple with an opponent, perform a suplex or something more in line with the chosen wrestler's arsenal? Most beat-em-ups allow you to grab onto an opponent and perform a quick throw or a slam move anyway, so why not with Betrayal, a game featuring grapplers as their playable characters? It would have made the game far more interesting and perhaps more fun than what little is in the game. Hell, I'd be happy if I were able to jump, but alas, 'tis not to be. In any case, there's a password system to save your progress, but the truth is Betrayal will probably take you at least half an hour to beat, maybe less than that even. But once you beat it, there's no real reason to go back to it, as the ending is pretty much the same for all 4 superstars. The world title belt on top, congratulations on the bottom, and the credits roll. Again, sorry if I spoiled the ending for you. WWF Betrayal sports some pretty average visuals, nothing particularly noteworthy or memorable to be found here. The wrestlers and various characters take on a more cartoonish look, much akin to the chibi art style of Mighty Final Fight. And in all fairness, they look alright for the most part. The wrestlers are more distinguishable from each other than everybody else though. The enemies in particular look like they've been rushed in the art department and look slightly less impressive. Not to say that anything in this game looks impressive. The levels are okay, they're clean and average at best, distinguishable from each other, but it's just pretty average visuals. Music in Betrayal is pretty forgettable stuff. Outside of low-key but respectable iterations of the wrestler's theme music, the rest of the soundtrack's basically nothing music, just stock generic music that really could have fit in any other game, really. The same could be said for the sound effects, they're sort of just there, nothing really special. WWF Betrayal is an interesting concept but uninspired execution. Like I said, I think the concept of a beat-em-up with wrestling-based gameplay is something that could work if done right. But Betrayal fails to live up to that expectation, opting for a paint-by-numbers beat-em-up that is dull monotony even by the standards of a genre that is repetitive by nature, and does nothing to take advantage of the brand associated with the game. To its credit, however, Betrayal is playable, and presentation is bearable if nothing else, but that's about it. There's nothing in the game that makes it memorable or fun, it just offers slightly less than the bare-bones essential of a beat-em-up, and does it in a way that is remotely competent, but ultimately unsatisfying to either beat-em-up enthusiasts looking for a game to plow through, or wrestling fans looking for a memorable WWF video game on their portable handheld. Long story short, if you long for a good WWF video game from the Attitude Era on the Game Boy Color, there's WrestleMania 2000, which we'll be looking at next time. If you long for a good beat-em-up on the Game Boy in general, then you have several more enticing options available to you. WWF Betrayal is simply not worth it. Avoid it. You're not missing anything.